You have a mass-produced brain running ancient software in a modern economy, and it is costing you a fortune. Right now, your nervous system is treating your bank account the same way your ancestors treated a dark cave. With suspicion, with fear, with an overwhelming urge to hoard and hide. This is the scarcity trap. And it is the reason why no matter how much you earn, you still feel like you are one bad week away from financial ruin. This is not a discipline problem. It is not a math problem. It is a biological glitch. Your brain is trying to build a modern skyscraper on a foundation of 10,000-year-old survival programming. And in the next 15 minutes, we are going to dismantle that foundation and replace it with something that actually works. To understand why you make poor financial decisions, you need to meet the amygdala. It is a tiny cluster of neurons buried deep inside your brain, and its only job is to answer one question. Am I safe? In our evolutionary history, if a predator appeared, the amygdala triggered a fight or flight response. Adrenaline flooded your body, you ran, you survived. The problem is that same cluster of cells now treats a 10% drop in your stock portfolio the same way it treated a predator. An unexpected car repair bill, a market correction headline, a colleague mentioning layoffs, your amygdala fires, and your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational planning, long-term thinking, and wealth building, goes offline. You'd literally lose the ability to think like an investor because your biology is screaming at you to hide. This is why 95% of people do not know their own numbers. They do not know their monthly burn rate. They do not know when their debt will actually be paid off. They are flying blind because every time they try to look at the data, it triggers a physical fear response. And so they look away. Your brain is not a single voice. Neuroscience shows that you have 4 distinct structured parts that shape how you think about money. The first is your analytical side. This is the part that makes spreadsheets, tracks expenses, and understands compound interest. It is calm, logical, and useful. The second is your scarcity center. This one stores every financial trauma and every not enough moment from your entire life. It holds grudges. It makes you flinch away from opportunity because it does not feel safe. The third is your present moment self. This is the part that wants the $7 latte and the vacation now. Because it has no concept of the future, it only knows what feels good right this second. The fourth is your financial wisdom. This is the part that can zoom out and see the bigger picture. It understands that you are alive, that you have options, and that individual transactions matter far less than the overall trajectory of your life. Here is the biological cheat code that changes everything. Emotions only last 90 seconds. From the moment you think a thought like, "I am going to go broke," a chemical loop runs through your body. Cortisol spikes, your chest tightens, your jaw clenches. But if you simply observe that feeling without acting on it, the loop completes and dissolves in under 2 minutes. People stay trapped in years of financial anxiety, not because the feeling persists, but because they keep re-triggering the loop by thinking the same scarcity-driven thoughts over and over. To rewire your brain, you have to learn to sit in that 90-second window of discomfort. Let the wave pass. And then let your prefrontal cortex, the rational part, regain control before you make any decision. One of the greatest myths in personal finance is that you must be perfectly rational. You are not a spreadsheet. You are a person. And trying to be coldly rational with your money usually leads to failure because you cannot sustain it during a crisis. Instead, aim to be mostly reasonable. A reasonable plan is one you can actually follow when everything feels like it is falling apart. For example, keeping 6 months of expenses in a runway fund might not be the mathematically optimal use of that cash, but it gives your amygdala the psychological safety it needs to let you stay invested for the long run. Sometimes the slightly inefficient choice is the one that keeps you in the game, and staying in the game is everything. Consider Ronald Reed. He was a janitor. He fixed cars for 25 years and swept floors for 17. He never made more than a modest salary in his entire life. When he died, his estate was worth $8 million. He was not a genius. He did not pick hot stocks. He did not time the market. His secret was the simplest and most boring strategy in existence. He bought good companies, he reinvested the dividends, and he never sold. He stayed in the game longer than everyone else. In a world obsessed with speed and shortcuts, his patience was his superpower. And this is the single most important skill in wealth building. Survival, not returns, not timing, survival. Because capitalism is brutal. 40% of all publicly traded companies eventually lose effectively all of their value. Getting money requires optimism and risk, but keeping money requires the exact opposite: humility, paranoia, and the quiet fear that what you have built can disappear just as fast as it appeared. The concept of neuroplasticity means your brain cells are constantly forming new connections based on your experiences. If you spend your days worrying about what you lack, you are physically strengthening the neural pathways for scarcity. You are literally training your brain to be afraid of money. To change the pathway, you need pattern interrupts. Every time you feel the itch to spend impulsively or the panic to obsessively check the markets, you do something different. Go for a walk. Breathe for 60 seconds. Write down what you are feeling instead of acting on it. You are not suppressing the emotion. You are creating space between the stimulus and the response. And in that space, you build a new neural pathway, one that leads to clarity instead of... Now, here is your system. Clarity comes from structure, not from guessing. And to move ahead of 95% of people, you follow a specific order of operations. Step 1. Calculate your burn rate. Stop using round numbers and feelings. Pull up your bank statements from the last 90 days and find the exact number. Not what you think you spend, what you actually spend. Most people are shocked by a gap of $300 to $500 a month between what they believe and what is real. That gap is your invisible leak. Step 2. Build your runway. 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a separate account you do not touch. This is not an investment. This is a psychological tool. It is the thing that stops your amygdala from hijacking your decisions every time a headline says recession. When you know you can survive for 6 months without income, your entire relationship with risk changes. You stop making decisions from fear and start making them from strategy. Step 3. Capture the employer match. If your company offers a retirement match, every dollar you contribute up to that threshold is doubled on day 1. That is a guaranteed 100% return. No asset class on earth offers that. If you are contributing less than your match limit, you are declining free money every single pay period. Step 4. Automate your compounding. Set up your investments to happen before you see your paycheck. Before your brain can manufacture a reason to skip this month. Time in the market is the single most reliable wealth-building force in human history. And the only way to guarantee you stay in is to remove yourself from the equation entirely. Now let me address something that quietly destroys more wealth than market crashes ever will. The man in the car paradox. When you see someone driving a Ferrari, you do not think that person is impressive. You think if I had that car, people would think I am impressive. Nobody is admiring the driver. They are imagining themselves in the seat. No one is as impressed with your possessions as you are. Real wealth is invisible. It is the money you did not spend on the $100,000 car. It is the freedom to quit a job you despise. It is the ability to take 6 months off and be fine. Controlling your time is the highest dividend money will ever pay you. And here's a truth that will save you years of frustration. Pessimism always sounds smarter than optimism. If someone tells you a stock will go up 10 times, you think they are a salesman. But if someone tells you it is a fraud about to collapse, you give them your undivided attention. This is because setbacks happen too fast to ignore, while progress happens too slowly to notice. Heart disease death rates have dropped 70% since 1965, but you will never see that on the evening news because it happened 0.1% at a time. Compounding works the same way. It is invisible until it is undeniable. And the people who understand this are the ones who stay invested long enough to see it. Everything we have discussed leads to a single number, your crossover point. This is the exact moment when your investments generate enough passive income to cover your monthly expenses. You do not need millions to be free. You need a system where your money works harder than you do. If you invest just $100 a month at a 7% return, it grows to nearly $250,000 over 40 years. The only thing standing between you and that number is the decision to start and the discipline to not stop. Napoleon once said that a genius is the person who can do the average thing when everyone else is losing their mind. Wealth is not about being extraordinary. It is about being slightly more consistent, slightly more patient, and slightly more intentional than the person you were yesterday. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. The barrier to entry has never been lower, and the cost of waiting has never been higher. Let your brain breathe, step away from the noise, and start building your runway today. Stay slightly